Hmm. All right, so welcome to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome to this Q&A. Question came up earlier. Questions come up before, but actually with a little bit of a little bit interesting twist, I think. The question was about tattoos. Now, the Torah prohibition of getting a tattoo is that it has to do with idolatry, right? If it's something idolatrous, it's going to be forbidden, it has to be taken off. Anything else that a person gets as a tattoo in general, I will speak more specifically, but in general is a rabbinic prohibition. And once the transgression has been done, it's been done. In other words, if someone converts, they go to the mikveh, they don't have to take it off. Right? The reason they don't have to take it off is because it's considered part of the skin. Once we consider it part of the skin, then it's not a barrier between the body and the person's body and the water. It's not what we call a chatzitza, something that blocks, that blocks between the skin and um, like a barrier, I guess, between the skin and the water itself. So therefore, really, you don't have to take it off, right? If someone has a tattoo, right, really is no obligation. There's no obligation to take it off unless it's something that was, done for idolatry. And the other issue comes up, we'll get to the question in a second. The other issue comes up, I had a case, the person didn't end up converting, but the case was someone had a tattoo and it said God, right? So now the question was, does God have any holiness, right, or not? Does the name of God in English, Spanish, French, whatever language, right? Obviously not in Hebrew here, that if a person had it tattooed on them, yeah, is that forbidden? So that was, it's a good question. So I would ask my Rabbi the question, and he said, first of all, there's a difference of opinion whether the name God or in any other language, English, Spanish, French, whatever, does it have any holiness in it? It's a difference of opinion. Some say does it have holiness, like it be written in Hebrew. Some say it doesn't. Right? So that's my very good. It's difference of opinion. So what do you do? What would you do in this situation? So before they convert, they should have it. They should have it taken off, and they should have it taken off by a non-Jew. Now, why by a non-Jew? Because if it doesn't have holiness, a non-Jew is not liable if they erase God's name. If they erase God's name, they're not liable. So he said better to have a non-Jew take it off. So I had a case where a person was interested in conversion. Haven't heard that from them in a while, but in any case, they said that a tattoo. So I said it's probably not a problem. In general, I said it's probably not a problem. But he said, let me take a picture. I'll show you. So again, I don't know how he got the picture. Maybe someone else took the picture, whatever it was. On this person's back, the picture was of Yud Kei Vav Kei, God's name. Like literally God's name in Hebrew. I'm like, that is a problem. First of all, a Jew shouldn't take it off, right? Erasing God's name. You should have, a non-Jew take it off, but that brings up other questions, right? One question would be, how does he go to the bathroom? How can he walk in the bathroom with it, right? If you have God's name, you can't walk in the bathroom with it. So maybe it's easier, if his body's covered, right? His shirt's covered, he's got a few layers, whatever it is maybe, maybe that wouldn't be a problem of, using God's name like that, and going to the bathroom. Or what's even worse is when to take a shower, right? They have to take a shower, right? Got to be clean. Yeah. So now you're totally exposed, right? We'll keep this PG-13, right? The body is now totally exposed. Yeah, and I got God's name right there. That's the problem. That is an absolute problem. Now, the only way to get around the problem, obviously, is I don't know how you get around the problem unless you wear a shirt, you cover it. But I don't know if that helps. I don't think that helps. Because if the lower part of the body is uncovered, male or female, doesn't really matter, right? If that genitalia is uncovered, that's a serious problem. That is a serious problem. You don't really have any way out of it. So my former university, Columbia University, they have a mosaic on the floor on one of the buildings. They have a mosaic with God's name on it, which is also pretty bad. Yeah, you can't even walk on it, right? It's a disgrace to walk on it. You put it on a T-shirt. I mean, you can't wash. I mean, there's a lot of problems. A lot of problems. If it's done in any other language, right? Again, is it a rabbinic prohibition? Is it a Torah prohibition? Is it prohibited at all? It's the whole question. It's the whole question. So you get out of the problem by having a non-Jew take it off. In this case, you also get out of the problem have a non-Jew take it off. But before that, what do? What exactly you do? So someone told me a while ago that people in America, whatever this person lives, you've seen a lot of people have tattoos with God's name on it. So like you ask them, non-Jews, ask them, do you know what that is? Like, they really don't know what it is, but I think it's cool to look at, whatever. And they get tattoos of, with God's name on it. So in general, for a non-Jew to get a tattoo, right? I don't think it's a problem. Definitely not a problem for a non-Jew to have a tattoo. The only problem would be if it's for idolatry, right? If it would be for idolatry, right? But if it's not for idolatry, non-Jew want to have a tattoo, okay. Now the question is taking off tattoo. I didn't even get to the question yet. The other question, but while I'm just on this topic, before I get to the other question, should a person take it off? Now again, if it has God's name in it, should take it off. Have a non-Jew take it off, right, before conversion. If it doesn't, let's say it's got, Jewish artifacts. I don't know. Someone has a tattoo of the state of Israel. Someone has a tattoo, I don't know, of a Kiddush cup. Someone has a tattoo of a lulav and an esrog. Right, let's say. Is that forbidden? Not forbidden. I mean, it's forbidden to have the tattoo, but it's not a total prohibition over here. Total prohibition is idolatry. So now the question is, should you take it off or not? So it depends on the person. If the person feels that they should take it off, okay. Do they have to? They don't have to, right? Again, the only thing that has anything to do with is the fact that when a person goes to the mikveh, right? If an non-Jew goes to the mikveh for conversion, or a Jew becomes religious and they have the tattoo and they go to the mikveh before Shabbos, let's say, on Friday, or whatever the case is. Okay. Yeah, but anyway, they're not going for purification. If a woman, let's say better, if a woman, went to the mikveh, right, so she could be with her husband, very good. So what if she had a tattoo? So again, it doesn't nullify the mitzvah here. It's part of the body. Since it's part of the body, right, it's really not a problem. Now the question in general would be, should the person keep it? So everyone's told me that here, I don't know if it works outside of Israel, but here in Israel, before the poor person is buried, if they have a tattoo, they burn it off, they take it off. So I asked him if that's true, and he said, yeah. So I asked him why. I said, okay, if they had it, they had it. I'm not talking about, some of the Holocaust had a tattoo. It's a different issue. But here, a person got it willingly. Would they, so okay, they didn't take it off before they died. Okay. Yeah. Now, should they take it off? So he told me here in Israel, they do take it off. So I asked him why. So he said, you're going to get upstairs. God's going to judge you. He's going to say, hey, what are you doing with that tattoo? Yeah. I mean, that's not the first thing God's going to ask. Difference of opinion, in different Gemaras, what God's going to ask first. One of the questions is, did you keep Shabbos? That's going to be one question. The other question is, was the person honest in business? Right? And two questions. Those are two of the first two questions the person will get asked. They're not going to get asked about tattoo. It's not going to be the first question. But Rabbi did say that to go out, it's not going to look good. Right? For sure, not going to look good. Now, if you take off a tattoo back in the day, before laser, if you took it off, leave a wound. Now it's forbidden to make a wound in the body. Now, to heal the body, you're allowed to. right? Person, let's say, goes to a dentist, draws blood. That's okay, right? Because you're doing something to fix the body, right? Fix the teeth. You do a person has to have surgery, right? Let's say, that's fine. But doing making a wound in general would be forbidden, right? That's the whole question, which I'm not really going to get into. Can a person be a boxer? Can a person do mixed martial arts, right? Say, can a person play football? Sports that you can really get injured, right? So that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother issue, right? So beforehand, what do you now before let's say better before laser doesn't really, not cheap to do, but it doesn't necessarily leave a wound, scar like if you did it the other way, right? It can definitely leave a wound. Sorry, a scar. So that being the case, in any case, you're making a wound. So making a wound is forbidden. Making a wound would be forbidden, but in this case, to take it off should be all right. Even if you make a wound, right? Lazy, you don't have that problem, right? Lazy, you probably won't have that problem. But Rabbi he did say, even let's say it's a rabbinic prohibition. Let's say it's a rabbinic prohibition to make a wound in the body, take off a tattoo. Let's say, because you end up making a wound, right? You're not doing it; someone else is doing it. Doesn't matter, but you're having that person make a wound in your body. Okay, so even if they do that, and you transgress the rabbinic prohibition and take it off, Rabbi would say better to be over rabbinic prohibition than have the tattoo at all. That's his opinion. I'm not saying everyone necessarily holds that, but that's his opinion. Yeah, he would say it's certainly better to take it off. Again, what does it apply to? Someone wants to convert, they have a tattoo. They have to take it off? No, they don't have to take it off. Right? They go to the mikveh, it's not a problem. Should they take it off? It's probably a good idea to. They don't have to. Right? You don't have to. All right, now let's get to the question, right? That only took me 10 minutes to get to this question, to get to that. The question was like this. A person tattooed to their body a verse in scripture, a verse in Tanakh. Yeah, doesn't matter where. And from the Torah, from the prophets, from the writings, they have a verse. They have a verse tattooed to their body. Now, we said before, you don't have God's name. We'll make it easy. Right? This verse doesn't have God's name. If it had God's name, you'd have to take it off. You certainly have to take it off. Let's say it doesn't have God's name. Yeah, in this case, this verse did not have God's name. So it doesn't have God's name in English. Does it have holiness? So we hold that, let's say a person reads a Jewish magazine, like a religious magazine, and sometimes in religious magazines you can have verses that are quoted in English. Yeah, let's say, whatever. These magazines are in English, it could be in Spanish, doesn't really matter. Right? But for argument's sake, let's say it's in English. Right? We'll make it very simple. So if they had God's name in there, they'll tell you, you got to treat it with proper respect and, etc. Now, that means I can't just throw it in the garbage. Right? So let's say I have words of Torah in English or any other language. Throw it in the garbage, not allowed to. Really, it should go into Geniza. Right? Usually most cities have some sort of Geniza society. So if you're not using, these texts, can't throw it in the garbage. You should really bury it. So there are, places that do that. But a person could, if you wrap it up, let's say in a plastic bag, if you double wrap it, you can throw it in the garbage. Right? Sticking in the garbage is really a disgrace, even in a different language. So if you wrap it up, it takes it down. It takes it down because, you're showing, I guess showing more courtesy, more honor to it than just throwing it in the garbage. Yeah, that's if it's in any language outside of Hebrew. Now, what if it's in Hebrew? So there are rabbinic authorities that hold that, let's say you read a newspaper, not that you should, but let's say a person read a newspaper in Hebrew. Yeah, it's in Hebrew. Don't use God's name. Probably all kinds of lashon hara, speaking badly against others. Probably all kinds of other things that are problematic reading it. Okay, can you throw it in the garbage? Now, some people would say that's where it belongs, right? Or you can read it in the bathroom. What's the problem? That's where it belongs. Yeah. Well, let's say let's say for argument's sake that's not the case, you'll have to throw it in the garbage. Now some would say, because it's got Hebrew letters, and the Hebrew language is holy, right? It is holy. Lashon HaKodesh is holy, right? Not the same as spoken Hebrew today, but it has holiness. The letters themselves have holiness. Very good. Yeah, so you're not allowed to throw it in the garbage. You're not be allowed. You can double wrap it, whatever, but you can't throw it directly in the garbage. Others would say no. Others would say there's no holiness whatsoever. It doesn't matter if it's written in Hebrew or not. So whatever, we have a difference of opinion. Now, person's got a tattoo, right? This is just a caveat, of the question. A person has a tattoo, and the tattoo is a verse. It's a verse in Chumash. That's what it is, right? It's a verse. It's a verse in 5 books. It's a verse in Tanakh, whatever it is, right? It's a verse in Torah. Now the question is, do you have to have that taken off? That was the question. So I said, if it's in English, you don't have God's name. There are those rabbinic authorities say it's got holiness. You got to take it off. You have to take it off by a non-Jew, right? Even in a different language, it could have holiness. Yeah. If it's in Hebrew, even without God's name, all the more so, right? All the more so. So I said that the other tattoos you don't have to take off. If a tattoo of the state of Israel, you want to leave it, fine. You have a tattoo of, I don't know, a Lovan and Ezra. You have a tattoo of a menorah, of a Kiddush cup. Yeah, a Jewish star, let's say, Star of David. Okay. Those really you don't have to take off. Yeah, even if they're religious symbols. Yeah, you wouldn't have to take them off. This would be more of a problem. Why? It's more than a religious symbol. It's actually the words of Tanakh. Yeah, so the words of Tanakh are a problem in any language, right? In any language would be a problem. Now, if you got God's name there, even worse, right? If you got God's name there, for sure you have to take it off, right? That's nothing to talk about, right? The question is, if you have a verse that doesn't have God's name, okay. If it doesn't have God's name, good. It might be a difference of opinion. Yeah, depends what language it's written in. If it's written in Hebrew, you probably should take it off, right? You have to take it off by a non-Jew. If it's written in another language, you got a difference of opinion. It's probably still going to take it off. Yeah, you don't want to walk around with with verses from Torah. Yeah, and especially when your body's uncovered. That's an absolute disgrace. So this person's got all over his back. Yud Kei Vav Kei, God's name. God's name is a serious problem. But it's a serious problem. I take a shower, I don't have an answer. I don't even have a bad answer. You can't. essentially, unless your private parts are covered, which that sort of goes against the whole point of taking a shower, I guess, right? Unless you wore shorts or a bathing suit and you're covered, you can't do it. It's impossible to do because it's a disgrace to the name. Even if they have, maybe you tell me it's less of a problem because they don't have intention for holiness. Yeah? They don't have intention for holiness. Now, so I'll give an example. The Gemara Gittin says, min shakasav sefer Torah. A min, either we say a min is a heretic, but a min is a notricon, an acronym for me Yeshu Anoitzri. Right? Someone sounds a Christian. Yeah, that they use the word min instead of saying JC because of the censorship. So it really means a heretic, but really it means from the students of JC, i.e. Christians. So min shekasav sefer Torah Yisrael, if you burn it, where do you burn it? It's got God's name in there. Why are you allowed to burn it? Because it has no holiness. They have no intention for holiness. Right? A New Testament written in Hebrew. Yeah. Let's say it's written in Hebrew. It's got the Old Testament there. Right? It's got, it's got the Torah there. God's name. What do you do with it? Burn it. You get rid of it. You can destroy it. That's not destroying God's name. It doesn't have holiness. So you say the same thing over here. Maybe it doesn't have any holiness at all. And still, it's a disgrace. even telling me necessarily doesn't. The fact is, the name is there. It's a disgrace to have it. An absolute disgrace. So you should take it off. Now, if it does have holiness, very good. Then you should have a Jew do it. A non-Jew should do it. Get a non-Jew to take it off, right? Because the raising God's name doesn't apply to a non-Jew. So that was the question for the day. All right. Someone asked, 1 second. Someone asked, demons influence people to get tattoos or multiple persons. Demons have no control over anything. Nobody comes in contact with demons today. Demons do not have the same power they used to have. Right? So demons are not doing anything. What causes a person to do it? Right? In general, what caused the person to? When I was growing up back in the day, many, many years ago, the only people that got tattoos, were sailors or lower couth people, let's say. That's who got tattoos. Yeah, scum of the earth got tattoos and sailors. That's who got tattoos years ago, many years ago. Yeah, today everyone has a tattoo. Who doesn't have a tattoo today? I mean, I don't, but most people have tattoos. Like, so you tell me, okay, it's the worst thing a person can do, as long as it's not for idolatry. Okay. There are other transgressions worse, true. But who doesn't have tattoos? Everybody has tattoos. Yeah, so I know somebody that converted. So they got that tattoo when they were young and dumb. They said, I'm getting rid of it. I said, okay. I went to the whole thing. They didn't really have to, whatever. All right, they want to get rid of it. So what influences someone to get a tattoo? Or multiple piercings? It's a good question. Not demons. Wouldn't say it's demons by any stretch. They don't have contact with us. We don't have contact with them. Yeah. They don't have the same power they have today. Yeah. Is it part of the evil inclination? It could be. Yeah. Some people feel, I mean, anyone's guess is as good as mine, but I think some people feel like, I don't know, makes them feel good. They have something on their body like that they can look at. People put like the girlfriend's name, the wife's name, whatever. Some people put, I don't know, you got Tasmanian devils. Some people put, Tweety birds. Some people put, all kinds of things. As long as it's not for idolatry, again, it's still forbidden. Don't get me wrong, it's still forbidden. Yeah, obviously, if it's idolatry, it'd be a total prohibition. Yeah, multiple piercings, is an interesting question. That's an interesting question, right? So we have today a phenomenon. I'm not going to say it's good, but there is a phenomenon in the Orthodox world that girls get multiple piercings. Now, most likely, I would say, someone's going to get multiple piercings. They have some sort of philosophical issue with modesty. Yeah, usually we say if a woman's going to have, let's say, a woman's going to wear earrings, right? They shouldn't be like these huge hoops that people are going to look at. Right? So the general rule of thumb is they shouldn't droop too low below the ear. Yeah. Not to bring attention to a person. Now, if a woman wants to get her ears pierced, is she allowed to? Yes. Multiple piercings? Getting your ear pierced is one thing. I mean, why should a person have multiple piercings? Why should they have 3, 4 piercings? People say, well, what's the problem with a nose ring? Rivka had a nose ring. Okay. Do most people today have nose rings? No. Most women do not have nose rings. Some do. I mean, I take a survey, but it's not, I don't think it's the majority of people. Majority of women have nose rings. Yeah. But that's the question always gets asked. Well, Rivka could do it. All right. So so what if Rivka had a nose ring? So I would say, if you're on the level of Rivka Imenu, you can wear a nose ring. We're not even close to that. But anyway, majority, most people don't wear nose rings. That's just the way of the world. You ain't gonna say, who cares what the world does? That's significant. If you tell me most people wear, can a guy wear a ring? Can you wear a wedding band? Most Orthodox Jews don't wear wedding bands. Yeah. In the non-Orthodox community, they wear wedding bands. Okay. But can a man wear, a wedding band? The groom has to give the bride something of value, gives her a ring. Okay. Then she has to give him. He's going to be the one to do it. Right? The question is, some people, they have a double ring ceremony. Yeah. He gives the ring and she gives him a ring underneath the chuppah. Not just like witnesses watching it, she doesn't have to give him anything. He's doing all the, he's doing everything. He's saying, you're going to be sanctified to me, in the name of Moses and the Jewish people. She's not saying that, right? He's the one giving the ring. He's the one giving her ksuva, right? Giving the bill of marriage. Where he's obligated. He's obligated to give her house, obligated, give her clothing, right? Give her conjugal rights. He's obligated. She's not obligating that per se. He is, right? So if he's obligated in that, why is he getting anything? Why is she getting anything? What's the problem? Well, most men don't wear rings. Maybe back in the day, some did. Certainly not everybody did, right? Certainly not everybody did. But if that's the case, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Today, you're saying today, anyone who's married, they have a ring. Men wear a ring. Okay. Yeah. Question is, what is a ring considered? Right? What is a ring considered? Is it considered a woman's object or not? Yeah. Does a man transgress the prohibition of Will Silbish of wearing women's clothing or men wearing women's clothing or vice versa? Does that apply in this case? So what is it? Is it part of women's clothing or not? So there's very strong sides to say, yes, it is. And a guy shouldn't be wearing a ring. Now, in a modern Orthodox community, what's going to be their permissibility? I don't know. They'll say a lot of men wear rings, so what's the problem? What's the problem? It could be a total prohibition. It could be a total prohibition, when they're wearing men's clothing or vice versa. A cross-dresser, total prohibition. A woman dressed like a guy and vice versa, total prohibition. There are other things, involved in that. But I think for the most part, you want to pin me down, why would they have multiple piercings? The reason is because they have problems with modesty. Usually it comes hand in hand. A woman's going to have multiple piercing, probably her skirt length is probably too short. Most likely, she doesn't cover her shirt or whatever she's wearing will not cover her elbows. And it's not going to be like up to here and to the neck. They're going to be modesty issues. Modesty issues come with the whole thing, right? They may wear pants, which is forbidden. They may, even if you say their pants made for women. Yeah? What's the problem? You see the split between the legs. Yeah? That's why a skirt is much better. You don't see it. Now, what about a tight skirt? That's a problem. That's a problem. Because, a regular skirt's not going to show anything. They can try and look, but it's not really going to show anything. Yeah, and the skirt should be whole. I mean, someone who wears a skirt, they have a slit right down the middle. That doesn't do anything. I mean, okay, it's good to wear in the skirt, but if there's a slit down the middle and you can just see their legs or whatever, that doesn't do what it's supposed to do, right? So if it's too tight, same thing. If it's too short, same thing. In other words, if a woman would sit down, you can see her knees and further, that'd be forbidden. If it's just over the knee a little bit down, that's fine. Right? That's fine. People get caught up with, the lengths and how much and this. But what's the whole point? A person should be looking at someone's legs. They should be covered. 100%. They should be covered. Now, a person can say, well, it's not her fault if he looks. Okay. It's his fault if he looks. Very good. Yeah. But she might be transgress the Torah prohibition of putting a stumbling block in front of him. That can also be if she wears too much perfume. Can a woman wear perfume? Not a problem. Can she really wear a lot of perfume? That's a problem. She walks by, and someone sniffs and turns around. She's going to say it's his fault. True. 100%. But if she's got it caked on, yeah, she could be, she could transgress the Torah prohibition of putting a stumbling block in front of someone. Doesn't apply to a non-Jew. It would definitely apply to a Jew, but even for a non-Jew, I wouldn't think it's a good thing. Put on perfume again is okay. Putting too much perfume on, I think, would be a different issue. But I think the whole thing stems from modesty issues. That a woman is going to have multiple piercings has some issues of modesty. Yeah, and not only that, but that the influence of the secular world is very strong. Because think like, what's really the problem? Now, obviously, it depends where you do it. That could be mutilation of the body. You're not allowed to mutilate the body. That you're not allowed to do. Now, I know a guy that had a tongue ring. So for a guy, it'd be a different issue. But yeah, he once told me so when he had it, like anytime he ate something or drank something like really hot or spicy or really cold, it affected him. I'm like, well, you're stupid to do it. Yeah, it's a mutilation of the body, right? Getting more piercings in the ear. I don't know if I call that mutilation of the body. Depends where you do it. Someone gets a belly button ring. It's not common. I mean, some people do it. Some people do it. Do another play. That's mutilation of the body. That should be mutilation of the body. Yeah. But I think part of it also just not just because they have modesty issues, but I think it's because also the power of the secular world. They see plenty of women wearing these things. Why shouldn't I wear it? Why shouldn't I wear it? Now again, there's in the outdoor Orthodox community, there's a trend. There is a trend, with women doing this. But again, where are they holding the world? It's not me to judge. But usually it goes hand in hand with modesty issues. If a woman is having some sort of issue, with modesty, there's a very good chance there'll be multiple piercings. Very good chance. They usually go hand in hand. Now, that being said, for certain things, might be okay, really. Might be okay. In other things, it might be considered mutilation of the body. So, there are two, there are different issues. Someone says, I have multiple tattoos. I'm good, I got them. Brother lost overseas. Yeah, which I know is against Torah. What does it affect my conversion? It doesn't. Unless it's idolatrous. If it's idolatrous, 100% you have to take it off. If you got God's name in it, whatever language, you got to take it off. Otherwise, you don't have to take it off. It doesn't have, the only effect it has is going to the mikveh, right? And if you go to the mikveh, for conversion, it's part of the body, part of the skin. Since it's part of the skin, you have no problem. So going to the mikveh is not a problem. That's the only thing that matters, right? That's the only relevant thing over here. Now, you don't transgress every second when you got the tattoo. Once you got the tattoo, that was forbidden. Okay. That's it. Right? So really, if you don't want to take it off, you can say, but I transgress every second I have it. Not true. That's not true. Right? If it's idolatrous, yes. Yeah, if you got God's name in it, you should take it off, as quick as possible. But what's done is done in general. If you did it, you did it. So the only relevant thing is going to the mikveh. And since that's not, since it's not a problem, because it's part of the skin, then you don't have a problem. The question is, should you take it off? You want to take it off, take it off. Do you have to? You don't have to. Mary would say you don't want that. You don't want that before you die. Because once you die, God's going, what do you do with that stupid tattoo? Why didn't you take it off? Now again, not every rabbinic authority is going to say you have an obligation to take it off. I heard somebody say, I don't know who it was. Hopefully the person said it, but someone said in a forum, with converts, it said that, their rabbi said that you shouldn't take off the tattoo. Why is the red badge card, right? You shouldn't take it off. It's to remind you who you are. Let me ask you. If a person's Hispanic, a person's black, a person's Asian, and you look in the mirror, and after conversion, you look the same, that didn't change, right? Skin color didn't change. Yeah. So, why would a person in general keep, I want to do it as a reminder where I came from. You know where you came from. You need an extra reminder. You need an extra, reminder. And there are plenty of Bali Tshuva people, weren't religious, became religious. They have tattoos. So they go to the mikvah on Friday. People are going to see them. It's kind of embarrassing. I would think it's kind of embarrassing. Yeah. But, some people won't care. But, again, the moderator of this group, I chewed out and I said, like, why in the world did you let that get in? Why tell people it's a red? First, I don't believe the person said it, but even if he did say it, even if he did say it, he's an idiot. Why would someone want this red badge card? Yeah, it's a good thing to remind me. What do you look in the mirror? Look in the mirror who you are. That's not going to remind you. You're going to all of a sudden forget. You know what your skin color was. You're going to forget. If you're Asian or Hispanic or anything else. You all of a sudden you forgot. So now I need this to remind me. Who says? First, I don't believe someone said it, but if they said it, they're stupid. Stupid for saying it. Yeah. But not only that, you have to have, if you're going to put it in a form like that, you got to clarify it. You can't just put it in a form and just say, oh, yeah, Rabbi, that's okay. I'm going to have a red badge of courage. I'm sure like he's going to be bragging in the mikveh. It's like, wow, look at me. Look at my Tasmanian devil. Yeah. Look at all these all over my arm. Think he's bragging? No, I don't think he's bragging. I didn't know if anyone was going to ask him about it. Yeah. I mean, they may feel self-conscious. They may feel self-conscious. Okay. So take it off. But to be as a reminder, person has, non-religious family or non-Jewish family. That's even a bigger reminder. Yeah. They come over, you have to put up a big sign. No, people will know. People will know. Okay. So they know. There's nothing to do about it. But to leave it as a reminder, better take it off. I'm not saying you have to, but to leave it as a reminder, that's insane. That's insane. Someone would say it. I don't believe someone said it, but if they said it, they're stupid for saying it. So yeah, does that go against Torah law with the effect of my conversion? No. Unless it's idolatrous or has God's name in it. Then for sure you have to take it off. Otherwise, you don't have to take it off. Is the U.S. Marine Corps symbol considered a part of idolatry? I don't think so. I don't. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Definitely doesn't look like it. Yeah, but I'll tell you a general rule. The general rule is the question about the cross itself. If a person wears the cross, yeah, is wearing the cross idolatry or not? Right. So now that depends. What does it depend on? Yeah. You'll tell me what it represents. Okay, but the people worship it. Now, in some places, people would worship the cross. Someone had a cross on, they would kiss it. Yeah, that would be forbidden. In other places, they wear it as a reminder, whatever. Okay, still not a good thing. Still not a good thing. Per se. And you say you shouldn't wear it because of what it represents. Okay, but is it idolatrous? Is it used in any idolatrous setting? No. Right? It's not used in an idolatrous service. Doesn't matter. People bow and they kiss it, whatever, but it's not idolatrous. If it's part of the service, the holy wafer, no pun intended, that holy wafer, that's idolatrous. That's used in idolatrous service. That you can't eat. Right? That can't have anything to do with it. If it's not used for idolatry, they don't worship it. In theory, it should be all right. There was a question brought up. Plate that has, I don't know, some sort of Christian symbolism in the border around the plate. Yeah. I don't know, it's a manger scene, whatever it is. Can you use the plate? Are you allowed to use the plate? That's the question. Yeah. So the answer is you'd be allowed to. Why are you allowed to use the plate? Because nobody's taking that plate and worshiping it. Now, if they would take it now, I knew somebody, blessed memory, was a mashgiach among other things, a very big rabbinic scholar, but was a mashgiach in a Chinese restaurant. And once told me, he said, he had non-Jewish workers, and they wanted to give a offering, to their God with one of the plates. He's like, no, you ain't doing it. You want to do it a paper plate? Do it in a paper plate. You're not doing it on a regular plate. That plate you got to throw away. That plate you can't. There's no way to kosher it. Right? Doesn't matter if they cook something in it, they didn't cook something in it, the thing was used for idolatry. That you got to get rid of. That you got to break. I mean, you got to destroy it. You got an obligation to destroy it. Yeah? But if you have a plate with a manger scene, I'm not saying you should eat off it. Yeah? But really, is there any halachic problem? There shouldn't be any halachic problem. Why? Why not? Because even no matter what it represents, it's not idolatry. Nobody worships the plate. If they worship the plate, very good. So then you wouldn't be able to. You would not be allowed to use it. So in this case, the U.S. Marine Corps symbol, not idolaters. Who worships it? If you tell me people worship that, then yeah, different issue. But I don't think anybody worships it. So if nobody worships it, it's not a problem. Sign itself. Some people, will just say are stringent for anything that's crisscross. The Stipler going, Rav Chaim Kanievsky's father, blessed memory, Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky, blessed memory, Torah giants of the last generation, would not have buttons on his shirt that were in crisscross, that the threads were crisscross. Now, I don't know anyone else who holds such a thing. Yeah, maybe there's some other rabbinic authorities hold that. The vast majority of people, say that's fine. So who cares if it's crisscross? It has nothing to do with, it has nothing to do with Christianity at all. It's a big deal. It's crisscross. Nobody worships it. Doesn't represent anything. It's just that's the way to keep the button on the shirt. So that wouldn't be a problem. The Stiper was, stringent for that. Everyone else didn't hold of it. There was a problem. He was stringent. 100%. He was stringent. He was also stringent that he didn't want pictures taken of. Yeah. He had the thing about pictures. Other people don't care. Right. So everyone's was buying for one of the poorer meals, and there were yeshiva students there. And they asked him if they could take a picture. So he said, the Stipler was very stringent, not to have his picture taken. So they started to walk away. So I was like, you want me to pose? He's like, should I stand like this? Should I stand like that? Yeah. But the Stipler was very stringent not to have pictures because of no graven images. But most rabbinic authorities don't hold that. They said you're allowed to take pictures. And he was very stringent there. Somebody asks, what if a person has an Israeli flag tattooed on them? Or the U.S. flag? It's not a problem. That's not a problem. It doesn't represent anything. People say, it'd be a totally terrible thing, take an Israeli flag or an American flag and burn it. Yeah? Because of what it represents. Okay. I hear that. What it represents. But let me ask the $1 million question. $1 million question is, does it have any holiness in it? Does it have any holiness in it? Now people would say it's a disgrace, you don't go burning flags. Okay. Well, what does it represent? What does it represent? Israeli flag, what does it represent? You say the Jewish state, but what does that mean? What does it represent? Represents, partially for sure, it represents a nation that doesn't want to have anything to do with mitzvahs. We're back in the land of Israel, very good, but they wanted that it shouldn't have anything to do with Torah mitzvahs. Read the book, or don't read the book. The Jewish State by Herzl. By Herzl Schmerzel. They didn't want any Jewish trappings here. They want to be a secular state of Jews, just so, there'd be a Jewish state, so there'd be no persecution. The Jews can come and not be persecuted by other nations. Okay. Does that represent, does the flag of Israel, does it represent Torah? Does Israel necessarily represent Torah? If you didn't have Orthodox Jews here, we'd say no. Go to Tel Aviv, go to Tiberias, go to any of these places. Yeah? And no semblance of Judaism at all there. Go like any other secular city. But you tell me it's a disgrace to burn it. Okay, but again, what does it represent? What does it represent in Torah? If they had their way there. If they had their way. They get rid of all Orthodox Jews there. They don't want to be reminded of what the Torah says. Yeah, it's a pretty big miracle Orthodox Jews can live here. Yeah. Now, just heard earlier, arrested a yeshiva student at 2 o'clock in the morning. Whatever, quote unquote, deserter, whatever, even though he had permission to not be in the army, had an exemption. They said the exemption's over, now he's a draft dodger. Yeah, 2 in the morning, going to his house. Take him out like a dog? Yeah, big problem, right? No, I'm not going into it. That's a big problem. One of the secular people on the left of the government years ago said, once we finish with the Arabs, we're going to take care of the ultra-Orthodox also. They don't have anything to do with us. They don't have anything to do with Torah and mitzvahs. Now, you have to tell me that that's what the Israeli flag represents. That's all it represents. We're still in exile. Messiah hasn't come, regardless if they speak Hebrew or not. And there's a lot of Torah here. Very good. We're still in exile. No question. We're still in exile. Now again, I'm not advocating going out and burning the flag. Right? I don't want to be misquoted. I'm not advocating that. Right? The question is, what does that flag represent? That's the question. What does it represent? Does it represent Torah? Then you wouldn't be allowed to burn it. Does it represent Torah? It sure doesn't represent Torah. Based on the history and what it is. People say, all the time they want to, be strong and this and that, so they sing Hatikva. Yeah, what's an Am Chofshi? What is a free nation? So one explanation is a free nation is we can live in the land, no problem. Yeah, meaning they're living in the land because they don't want to be persecuted. That's why you have a Jewish homeland. But what does an Am Chofshi also mean? What the real intention is? An Am Chofshi means I'm free from doing mitzvahs. That's what it means. I have no connection to the Torah of the Jewish people. That's how the state was founded. That's exactly what they wanted. Yeah, even though the first Zionists came here were the students of the Vilna Gaon more than 300 years ago, and a lot of them died, malaria and other things, trying to dig out the swamps and whatever. They were the first Zionists that came. Yeah, but again, I'm not advocating to burn flags. But you have to tell me why the Israeli flag represents Torah. It doesn't. 100% it doesn't. Right? So technically, if someone wanted to burn it, it would be the worst thing? That would be the worst thing. Yeah? It doesn't represent anything. It represents the place where the Jewish people are. And what does that mean? Eat falafel? Yeah, what does that mean? What does that mean? It's a homeland for the Jewish people. Very good. But a homeland for the Jewish people means, as the Torah says, going back to Zion, going back to Zion, means with Torah mitzvahs. In the Beis HaMikdash. In the temple. Yeah? Doesn't mean anything less than that. Oh, you're going to bring back the Hebrew language. You're going to eat falafel, speak a little bit of Hebrew. The people know nothing. Nothing. Secular Jews, unbelievable. Right? I just tell you how far it goes. Just tell one story. I'll take other questions. Somebody, an Orthodox Jew goes, and he wants to speak in a whatever secular school. So, they make him sign a statement. You're not allowed to proselytize. You're not allowed to teach too much, and this is fine. So they have an assembly, 400 people there, 400 kids there, the principal's there. So he's talking a little bit about Shavuos. And he asked 400 kids, Israeli kids. We're not talking about they live in Timbuktu, or they live in Idaho, right? Or they're a potato farmer in Idaho, no offense. Right? Anyone's a potato farmer or lives in Idaho, yeah? Yeah? So he asked 400 Israeli kids. Israeli kids, who wrote Sefer Tehillim? Who wrote the book of Psalms? Nobody answers. Nobody knows who wrote the book of Psalms. The principal's like, looking for a rock to hide under. So he goes, okay. Nobody knows? Let me give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. So he says David, as in David HaMelech, like King David. He says David, and they all scream out, Ben-Gurion! Now you can't make that up. They don't know who wrote Sefer Tehillim? Israeli kids have no idea who wrote the book of Psalms? That's pretty pathetic. That is pretty pathetic. Yeah, I mean, ignorance is like, they have no idea what the Torah says. Oh, they learn it like, they learn it like any other academic said, oh yeah, I learned Tanakh before. Oh, I learned this before. They don't know anything. They know very little. Yeah, someone asked, do I know what the mark of God put on Cain? No. I'm not sure what it was, but what the purpose was that animals stay away from it. It was a certain mark. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was a certain mark that animals wouldn't come and kill him. Yeah, God cursed him and said you're gonna die after 7 generations, and and you're gonna wander and this and that, but he's not gonna die until then. So he put a mark on his head. I don't know exactly what the mark was, but he put some sort of mark on his head so animals would be afraid to stay away from him. Someone said, "Oh, I'm glad I never got a tattoo." Yeah, got it 40 years later. I know somebody had someone as a Shabbos guest once, and they had tattoos all the way from their neck all the way through all over the body. Entire body was covered in tattoos. Can't imagine, like, this is already many years ago. This person said, "Yeah, when I get some money, that's what I'm going to do is try and take them off." I can't imagine what the skin's going to be like, 40 years later. Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, can't imagine. His whole body, not just like a little bit here, a little bit there, entire body covered in tattoos. Okay, that might be a little bit extreme. People got tattoos. I mean, it's very rare you find people didn't have tattoos. Yeah, today, very common. Very, very common. What if someone says has some 25th ornaments? Yeah, Christmas ornaments. All their family members' names on it. Okay. Yeah. How it has wreaths drawn on it besides the name. Should it be gotten rid of? If you have it, get rid of it. Yeah, if they have it, you have to tell them get rid of it? No. Someone once told me they had, I don't know, their attic somewhere. They had like all these, old things that they made when they were younger. These type of ornaments and different things. Yeah, so they have to get rid of it. Now, it's not idolaters. Not idolaters per se. Yeah, they don't worship it. You tell me, okay, the tree, they worship the tree? I don't think they worship the tree. It's what the tree represents. Obviously, you shouldn't have a tree. Fine. Right? But these other things are not idolaters. So do you have to get rid of it? No. You don't have to get rid of it, per se. I would say it's a good thing to get rid of, but it's not idolaters. Right? It's definitely not idolaters. Someone wanted to leave things, it just whatever reminds them of the childhood when they made these things. So they have them. Okay. But yeah, better get rid of, I would think so. But again, it brings back, I don't know, brought back good memories. It's not going to be Christian because of it. But it's something from their childhood they want to remember. I can think of other things that are probably better, but, do you have to really get rid of it? No, it's not idolaters. Not idolaters. And when someone else has it in their house, you walk in their house, it's not your problem. Right? Let's say family members have, they put it on their tree and they have their name, they have your name on it. That's the one. So they have your name on it. Yeah, it's not a problem. It's not yours. If it'd be yours, I'd say get rid of it. If it brings back nostalgic memories, let's say, and a person doesn't want to part with it, okay. Is it idolatrous? No, not idolatrous. I wouldn't say it's idolatrous. Yeah, but if someone else used it, you walked in their house. Let's say you walk in someone's house and, they have, I don't know, they have all kinds of statues there, whatever. Yeah, can you walk in the house? You can walk in the house. Can't pray there, right? Wouldn't be able to pray there. Can you make blessings that this guy's hanging on a stick there? Yeah, I don't know. I'd look the other way. Yeah, so you're not doing it directly in front of him. Turn your back or something. Yeah, but otherwise, walking in the house is not a problem. It's not your issue. It's their issue. Yeah, but there are certain things you can't pray there. Can't pray in front of it. Right? Certain things you can't do, but for the most part, it's not a problem. Right? It's not a problem. Is there a flag or a symbol that represents Jewish people? No. There are, people at synagogues sometimes have stained glass windows, of the tribes and the flags of the tribes. Sometimes in let's say Passover prayer books, let's say the constellations, different things, they have that. But flags in general, no. The only flags that we have are the flags of the tribes, that the Book of Numbers describes, but not one single flag for the entire nation. Someone says tattoo addiction is a crazy addiction. I would agree. I mean, I wouldn't say it's normal. Obviously Torah speaks about it, and Torah says it's forbidden. Yeah, but people have all kinds of tattoos. I don't know. It is kind of strange. It is kind of strange. Even if someone's like, even if they have Jewish tattoos. I understand why they do it. I mean, it can cause you a lot of problems also, but I understand why a person, a person, might want to do it. But yeah, it is, you know, and some of them are painful, by the way. It depends where you get it. I know somebody that lost the bet in the fight, and this guy was a big guy. He was like probably about 6'4", 6'5", about 250 pounds or more. Probably about 280 pounds, almost 300 pounds. This guy lost the bet. He lost the bet. And because he lost, he didn't want to jilt on the bet. Whatever the bet was, whoever lost had to get their head tattooed as a fireball. I can't even imagine how painful that must have been. I mean, he's probably drunk or stoned out of his mind when he had it done. Even if he's, a big guy and he's, 300 pounds or whatever, and he's 6'5", who cares? I can't imagine how painful that must have been. But this person lived the rest of his life with this fireball in his head. I don't know. Yeah, be careful what you bet if you lose. Yeah, can a Jew buy a house the Roman Catholic used? Yes. Because why? Because they used to own, Roman Catholics fill their house with idols. That was a spiritual fumigation. Yeah. Even if they put idols in there, so what? Can you buy it? You can buy it. It's not a problem. Obviously, if you own it and they say, well, take the house as is. Yeah, let's say with everything in it, and they have idols in there, you got to get rid of them for sure. 100%. You got to get rid of it. Right? You can still buy the house, but you have to if you're buying it with idolatry that's in there, you got to get rid of you have to get rid of the idols. 100%. You have to get rid of the idols. Someone says very good spiritual fumigation. Yeah. Fumigation. Yeah. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. You put up mezuzah, it'll take all that garbage down. Yeah, you put in books, you get, most Orthodox homes, you walk in the door, what's the first thing you see? Not a 50-inch screen, you'll see books, piles, you'll see, bookshelves and bookshelves of books, right? Bookcases of books. That's who we are. Yeah, that's the most important thing. So you do the opposite. You bring in all these books, very good. So that sanctifies the house. You put up a mezuzah, it sanctifies the house. Yeah, no matter what was in the house before. Could have used for devil worship, who knows what. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Now the question would be, interesting question, well, does that have an effect on a person? I don't think it does. I don't think it should matter. You come and sanctify the house, the other spooks and things that are in it because of what they brought. I don't think it has any, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters what they did before. Now the thing is, if they had idols there and you're buying as is and you're taking it, you're taking the whole thing, even with that, doesn't make the house idolatrous per se. First thing you got to do, once you finally close, you can't live there with the idols. You got to get rid of the idols first. So if that would be the case, so you don't move in until you get rid of the idols. You don't want to live there with the idols there for sure. You own them now, so you gotta destroy them. Can you buy it with them in there? I mean, you can in theory. It doesn't mean the house is idolatrous. Yeah, you'd be allowed to, but you have to get rid of them, 100%. And you wouldn't live there with them there. What if someone did? So again, you can't pray next to them, can't pray near them, right? But you gotta get rid of them, 100%. You can't give them to someone else. You gotta destroy them, right? Someone has the Old New Testament. They want to give it to a Catholic neighbor. No, you got to get rid of it. You have to, let's say better, you got to destroy it. Absolutely. You have to destroy it where no one can get benefit from it. Yeah. Can't give it to anybody. Yeah. And even if there's Hebrew written in it and it's God's name written in Hebrew, you can burn it. You can get, that's not a problem. Right. We said before, that's not going to be, that you have to get rid of and destroy. Don't put holy books on this ground. Why not? On the ground. It says, yeah, don't bring in idols. And what if the idols are there? So now you're in a place where the idols, so what's your obligation? I can get rid of them, destroy them. But any house you're going to buy outside of Israel, let's say, in most cases, if it's bought from a non-Jew, guess what? There are probably idols there. So what are you going to do? You're not going to live in a house? You got to live in a house or an apartment. They say, I'm only going to buy from a Jew. Okay. Do you have to go that far? No. we'll make it very simple. You buy the house, it's empty, they take their idols out. Very good. Not a problem. The only problem is that they leave the idols there and what you do with them. That's that is the issue. What if the holy book falls to the ground? So you gotta pick it up and you kiss it. Yeah, it's got holiness. Prayer book has holiness. You drop the prayer book, you kiss it. You drop one of the books of the rabbi, say, "Oh, the rabbi's this." No, you kiss it. Why do you kiss it? Because it's got intrinsic holiness. By the people by the people who wrote it. Yeah, I'm not saying about publishing. I'm saying the people who wrote it. It doesn't matter what the cover is. It doesn't matter what the paper is. Right? What matters is what's written on the paper. So what's written on the paper is holy, for sure. Any holy book. Right? Any books, the early commentators, later commentaries. There is a hierarchy. Just put it out there, what books you're allowed to put on other books. Right? You can't put, let's say, a Chumash. You can't put, let's say, Shmir's the Lashon, right? The laws of speaking Lashon Hara, of the Chofetz Chaim. I can't put it on a Chumash. Chumash has to go on top of that. It's more holy, right? Or let's say, when they were early commentators, let's say the Ritva, the Rashba, or whatever. You have a book of the Ritva, the Rashba, you're going through, you put it on a Chumash. That you're not allowed to do. That doesn't have more holiness. The most holiness is Chumash, and then Tanakh, and then after that, then you have the commentators or whatever. But there's hierarchy. But if any of these books fall on the ground, yeah, absolutely, you kiss it. And not just a prayer book, any book, right? It can be written in English, but if it's got Torah in it and it falls to the ground, you have to kiss it, right? It's got holiness, and any language got holiness. Yeah, as we said before, it's got God's name. It doesn't have God's name, it doesn't matter. The fact is, it's got words written in Torah, right? And it's good Torah. If it's bad Torah, yeah, you chuck it in the garbage. Right? It doesn't mean anything if it's bad Torah. Yeah, but if it's good Torah, yeah. Then you have to treat it with proper respect. 100%. You got to treat it with proper respect. Yeah, any other questions? Now, remember when I learned, many years ago, Tractate of Avodah Zarah, a lot of people outside of Israel should learn these laws. Yeah, it's very, very common. A lot of these things are when it comes to idolatry, are common. In Israel, it's less common. Probably many things talked about there are probably less common. Less common here. But outside of Israel, it can be very common. Very, very common. So, you have to know these things, what applies, how it applies, in different, different things. Someone asks, if it fell, let's say like an earthquake, what if you dropped it? Right? We don't have to go that far that it fell in an earthquake. What happens? You open up a bookshelf, like sometimes by me, and I got like layers and layers of books, and sometimes the book hangs out and it falls. Yeah. It has nothing to do with an earthquake, it's just the way, it is in the bookcase. Yeah. But yeah, if it falls, yeah, you got to pick it up. 100%. You don't have to fast because that's only for a Sefer Torah. If a Sefer Torah drops, that's bad. That's bad. Whoever saw it, should fast or they give charity, whatever. But that's a much more serious thing because that has the highest level of holiness, right? It's a Torah scroll, right? But if a person dropped the Chumash, obviously you kiss it, but you don't have to fast. You certainly don't have to fast. Someone wants to, they can, but they don't have to. Certainly don't have to. The next holiness thing next to Sefer Torah is tefillin. Tefillin, you got to be very careful. Person has tefillin, you got to be very careful. If you drop it, you give extra money to charity. That's not a good thing. I'm not talking about whether it gets damaged or not. That's not the issue. That's not the image. It's probably pretty protected. Yeah, but the fact is, something that holy fell. It's not good. That's definitely not good. You should definitely give more money to charity. To offset that because you should have been a lot more careful. With other books, you don't have to be careful, but tefillin, yeah, you don't want to drop tefillin. Sometimes, it can happen. I'm not saying it can't happen, but you want to be careful with that. Idols throw in the Dead Sea. Yeah, or take a sledgehammer. Take a sledgehammer. Yeah, but yeah, it has to be destroyed, 100%. Now, let's say you have family members that have idols. Can you walk in them and destroy them? That's a problem. That might be a problem. Yeah, it's not yours. Yeah, so that gets into a bigger issue. You're stopping them from sinning with idols. True. True, but it's also Geneva, right? It's also stealing. So the question is, are you allowed to steal to stop a person from sinning? So that's a good question. That is a good question. Many years ago, when they were doing autopsies, let's say when people died, here in Israel, Orthodox Jews would go in the middle of the night, go to the morgue and steal bodies. It sounds pretty gruesome. They would come and steal bodies and bury them instead of having them go through what do you call it? Autopsy. Yeah, a lot of times when people die, they automatically do an autopsy. Yeah, I don't think they do it. I don't think they do it anymore. But whatever, many years ago, probably 70, 80 years ago or more, they would do autopsies. So it's a mitzvah to steal the body. Gotta make sure you don't get caught, but it's a big mitzvah to steal the body and bury it. Yeah, then let it be used for autopsies. Autopsies. Are children's dolls considered idols? Not considered idols, but some say that they are considered graven images. That's why they'll make a big distinction here. But you see, Amish people, when they have, dolls or whatever, they have pictures of people, they have it without a face because of graven images. Okay, so what a person should do if they have a doll, is to do something. They should do something, take it out of this problem, take off some part of it. I mean, obviously, a kid's not going to get totally grossed out by it, whatever. Take off something. Take off a finger. Take off maybe, I don't know, part of the toe. I don't know. Take off something. Yeah, you can have dolls, but there is an issue. There's somewhat of an issue with graven images. So the way to get around the problem is take off part of it. Take off something. You don't want to do it in the nose or something. The kid's gonna get terrified, or something. You take off part of it. Take off a finger, take off maybe a couple fingers, I don't know, a couple toes. It doesn't have to be so recognizable. Yeah, but it should be done. It should be done. What about stuffed animals of non-kosher animals? I don't know. Some people are stringent in that. Not to have certain not to have non-kosher animals, stuffed animals, but I think most people are lenient. I think most people are going to be lenient that way. And everyone thinks, by the way, the Amish are these quaint people and whatever, and they were the biggest rabid anti-Semites back in Germany and other places back in the day. They were the ones, or many of them were the ones that, went in the forest and other places looking for Jews hiding. The Amish, everyone thinks, oh, they're so great, whatever. Yeah, look in the history. Look in the history who the Amish were. What they did. They're not Jew lovers by any stretch. What if a Jew lives in the neighborhood? Roman Catholics also live, and their idols are visible. So what? It's not your problem. Nothing to do. You can't pray against them. What can you do? Yeah, they were polluted by that. Go in the South. Every street corner has a church. Yeah, yeah. It's not good. You can't pray by it. Okay. Yeah. The Rambam says very clear, by the way. The Rambam makes very clear in the laws of idolatry that there's an absolute obligation, even outside of Israel, to destroy these things. Blow up churches, any type of idolatry, destroy it. But you got a problem, right? What's the main problem? The main problem is what we call Dina Damachus Dina, the law of the land. And because of the law of the land, if you do that, you go to jail. Yeah. Now, what would happen? Someone will say, "But I won't get caught." Let's say 100% you won't get caught. So technically, it should be all right. Technically, he said it's a mitzvah to do it, even outside the land, to destroy idolatry. That means you can firebomb all these churches and burn them to the ground. Big mitzvah to do it, but you can't. Even Israel, you can't do it. Yeah, I mean, they're protected. It's crazy. You have all kinds of idolatry in the land. How much land in Jerusalem the Vatican owns? I mean, billionaires renting out the land. Vatican got a ton of land, all over, but mostly in Jerusalem, the land that they own, that they rent out, make billions. Billions. You think they're gonna take down these churches? Hell no. They ain't gonna, really, freedom of religion. Another issue. I mean, it's not the major issue, but you're polluting your own land. Your own land that God gave you back after 2,000 years. You're putting these stupid churches up? Now, okay, you got a mosque there, whatever. Okay, it's a false religion, but it's not idolatry. Some will say that, there are authorities that hold it is idolatry. For the most part, we don't hold it. We don't hold it's idolatry. Right? A person that had nowhere to pray, the Rambam says you can pray in a mosque. You can pray in a mosque. Yeah. That's not idolatry. Church, for sure you can. That according to everybody, you can. Yeah. Even though some people say that, what do you call it? That Islam is idolatry. We don't hold that way. In any case, we don't hold that way. But yeah, does it pollute it? Sure. Pollutes the whole place. But you go in the synagogue to pray, regardless of what's around you, it's not a problem. Right? Not a problem. Can a person pray? They see an idol, right? 20 meters away, 100 meters away. Okay, so you pray in a different direction. Right? You pray where you can't see it. Doesn't matter if it's there, you pray where you can't see it. They tell me Moshe Rabbeinu had to leave, go outside the main part of Egypt in order to speak to God because of all the idolatrous things there, whatever. Okay. That's Moshe Rabbeinu, it's not us. You still pray there. Otherwise, where else are you going to go? You got, certain, where a person lives in certain places. Yeah, you got churches all over the place. Dime a dozen, right? Right down the street, a bar, right? Go hand in hand. So you got churches all over the place. Okay. And the problem. Obviously, you can't pray next to it. You can't pray in front of an idol or nearby. And if you see an idol, so okay, so you turn away. You got to do something, obviously. But yeah, it's, if you're praying, let's say you're praying outside, and there's an idol 200 meters away. I mean, you can't pray there. You just can't look at the idol while praying. You don't want to be able to see it, but otherwise you'd be allowed to. But you do have places surrounded by it. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Somebody asked, what is the purpose of Adam's now Satan's first wife? Not going into that. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos, Q&As, Ethics for Fathers, Book of Leviticus. You want to send an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com. Wish everyone a good beginning of the day, middle of the day, end of the day, and